My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director with the Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. And today is January 15th, 2022, and we're in the city of Tampa, in the state of Florida. Miss, what's your name?
My name is Diane Joyce Meleen.
Okay. And Diane, what branch of the service were you in?
I was in the United States Army.
Okay. And what year did you enter into the service?
I entered in 1982.
Okay, and where were you living at the time?
I was living in Westfield, New York.
Okay. And what were you doing prior to coming into the service?
I was a high school student.
Okay. Good. Okay, you graduated from high school before you went into service, correct?
I graduated from high school before I went into service, that's correct.
How old were you at the time?
I was 18.
Okay. All right, so why did you choose that branch of the service?
Well, the branch chose me because the other recruiters didn't have much to offer, or they were full with recruits. I actually wanted to go into the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
So, and I didn't want to be on a ship, and I didn't want to go in the Marines. So it was between the Air Force and the Army, and the Air Force didn't need anybody at the time. I actually signed up before I graduated on the delayed entry program.
Oh, okay. All right. So where did you go to basic training?
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. How long was basic training?
8 weeks.
Okay. AIT.
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay. So tell me, what was basic training like?
Cultural shock, scary, exciting, a sense of accomplishment, all of that. I felt it was hard.
Okay. Why did you say culture shock?
Because I came from a small town, mountain town, mostly white, all white,
Mm-hmm.
and I was all of a sudden in New Jersey where there were other people that didn't look like me.
Okay. You mean racially?
Yes, racially.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, and how did that make you feel?
Well, I was excited to learn about other people, but I also for the first time experienced a sense of what it's like to be a minority.
Mm-hmm.
I have a sensitivity to that.
Ah. And tell me about that. Can you explain that?
I don't know if I can explain it other than I felt great empathy for what other people had to go through, and because of what I was going through at the time,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not having friends because I didn't look like other people, or
Uh-huh.
there were, only not having, people speak to me because of the way I looked.
Right.
So I was able to experience that.
Okay. Where did you go to AIT?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Uh-huh. And what was that like?
That was a co-ed experience where we were learning along male recruits and trainees. So it was almost like college for the Army, where you had a little more freedom, but not too much freedom that you would get in trouble and commingle with the male AIT students that were there. I was part of a drill team, so that kept our time busy practicing for drill competition. And I learned the Army way of typing and being an admin clerk.
What is the Army way of typing?
Well, they have regulations that you have to type a letter in a certain format.
Okay.
So I had to learn all these different formats, and I also drove because I was able to drive a stick shift.
Uh-huh.
or I was able. You could drive a stick shift, then all of a sudden you got your Army driver's license.
Oh,
So
okay.
you were able to drive a little bit with military vehicles.
How long was AIT?
It was another 8 weeks, so the whole program was 16 weeks.
Okay. The time that you spent in basic training and AIT, did you get hurt, or did anyone? Were you aware of anybody being injured?
No, other than the normal, maybe a shin splint or a ankle sprain, but looking back, the program was designed to get us to pass a certain physical training goal. So we did a lot of marching, running, and we did a lot of push-ups. So I do recall there was a suicide in AIT on the range, and that was a male from another company.
Right.
That was not in my company.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so where was your first duty base after your training?
I was sent to Fort Benning, Georgia, Harmony Church, which was next to the Ranger Battalion, and it was an infantry training brigade. So I was one of 6 females amongst a 6-company male training brigade of infantry soldiers.
Okay. And how long was that tour?
That tour was the remaining of my 3-year tour. So I left that, that tour was 1 year.
Okay.
1 year.
Okay. So yeah, what was Fort Benning, Georgia like? What were the people on the economy like?
It was hot. I'm from New York, so I had trouble dealing with the heat of the Georgia heat and the Southern culture. That was new to me. There was still some racial tensions going on in the South at that time, and I remember a news article, there was actually a lynching in Georgia, and that was the first time I thought, where did I go to some place that these things are still happening, these horrible things. So it was...
And what year was that?
That was in 1984, 83 and 84. They, as a female, one of 6 females, they allowed us to move off base, which normally for a low-ranking enlisted, they didn't do that. So we were able to go off base, but I still needed roommates. And so, of course, we were robbed because we were in low-income housing and things like that. But they thought they were protecting us by sending us off base because of all the trainees on base being men. But I'm not so sure that they did. We seemed to find a little bit of trouble.
Right. How did that affect you? And you were with 5 other women?
I was actually with 3 other people.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in an apartment, kind of like college. There were 2 guys and 2 girls, and we weren't all from the same company, but we met at the reception station, and we all agreed that we did not want to live in the barracks. So that's how we found each other.
Okay. All right. And how long? You said you were there for a year, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what was your next tour?
My next tour was Korea, 2nd Infantry Division. Again, I was very near the DMZ, the last base, Camp Casey, that allowed women.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we were still paying with cash, no EFT, electronic deposit like they do now. So I worked for the finance company, one of the few companies that had women. And I was a driver, and we would drive pay all over the DMZ to the outskirts of the 2nd Division.
Okay. You would drive pay? What do you mean? Oh, you would...
We would go down, I would be a driver, and we would go down to Seoul from Camp Casey or Tongdashan and pick up a crate of cash with an armed officer and drive it back the 40 miles to Camp Casey. And we would disperse the money to the troops up on the hills or the various camps that were based, near the DMZ.
Right.
So we paid cash for a while, and then And at the time, the Seoul Olympics arenas were being built, so that was kind of an exciting time.
Okay.
But, yeah, so that was my really last active duty experience before I crossed over into becoming a commissioned officer.
Okay, all right. What did I want to add? Oh, so, okay, you went to OCS?
I left active duty as an E4 with a lot of money from the military college program, which was one of the reasons I went in, and went to SUNY Fredonia in New York State, back where my family was. And it was an ROTC program that I completed in 2 years because I had prior service as enlisted, and so I was commissioned in 1990 from SUNY Fredonia as a second lieutenant.
Before we go forward, what were the people like on the economy in Korea?
Well, in Korea, it was a complete cultural shock. I've never been to Asia or any country out of the United States.
Right.
And prostitution was legal there, so there were a lot of clubs downtown that had girls that the guys would go and see. There was a prophylactic dispenser at the gate that said better be safe than sorry. They handed them out at formation to the guys in the infantry or the tanker companies. So there was a small number of women at Camp Casey, and we were always defending ourselves, it seemed. We had to go out in pairs downtown, we couldn't be out. And I felt like, you had to really be aware of your surroundings at all times, and really had to trust the people that you were with because of the environment, the military environment. Now, the civilian culture was beautiful. I mean, the people were kind and sweet and employed on base. So we had a woman in our barracks that we paid a little bit, and she would do our laundry, and she was very sweet. So the culture and the food and the beauty of the country was beautiful. But the military environment was still, there for us to navigate through.
Right. Okay. I was wondering what you said about the people. So you made friends with the Koreans?
Yeah, I had some friends that were Koreans they were married to soldiers. So maybe I knew the soldier, and we went to their home, and we would walk through the village, or the ville, we would call it. And I remember her trying to take my hand and hold my hand, because it's very common for women and men to be holding hands in Korea, and I just didn't know how to handle that. So she took my hand, I held her hand for a while, but I also knew that the military might see me and think, at that time, being gay in the military was you hid that. So I was worried that someone would see me holding hands with this girl and out me as being gay. So I just I held her hand for a while, and then I found a reason not to hold her hand, like go into a shop or something like that.
Right.
So, but the people were lovely.
Okay, nice. Did you travel any other places while you were in the Asian theater besides Korea?
No. We had a big exercise called Team Spirit, and that was interesting. I was a driver for that, and I went in. That was my first bathhouse experience in Korea, where people are community bathing, and so that was interesting too. That was didn't quite know how to handle that, but got through it.
Okay.
You didn't expect to see whole families in a bathhouse together,
right?
And generations, grandfathers, grandmothers, sons and daughters,
everybody.
And children, everybody, yeah.
Well, things are different outside the United States. So anyway, I didn't ask you, were you drafted or enlisted?
I enlisted in the delayed entry program for a educational programs. So my family didn't have a lot of money, so this was a way for me to figure out what I was going to do and get the money to do it with when I decided to go to college.
Okay, so you said that you became an officer.
Yes.
Was that before or after Korea?
That was after Korea.
And what did you get a degree in?
Political science.
Okay, you get your bachelor's.
I have a bachelor's and I also have a master's in mental health and psychotherapy.
And when did you get those?
I got that latter in 2015, but the bachelor's I completed in 1990.
Nice, okay. While you were still in the service?
Well, when you're in the service, you can get classes for free or at a reduced amount. So when I got out in 1985, I had an associate's degree.
Okay.
So I went to 2 years at SUNY Fredonia, New York, and completed my bachelor's and my commission.
Okay, all right. So, how many total, what's the total number of years that you served as enlisted and as an officer?
36.
Oh, congratulations,
Thank you.
congratulations. Okay, so where did you go after Korea?
After Korea, I ETS'd, got out, and went home, and a recruiter called me and said, hey, we got this reserve unit in Gary, New York, and they're full of drill sergeants, and they go to Fort Leonard Wood, and I was feeling really disjointed when I got out of the Army. I felt like I needed a purpose, and so I just went back into the reserves instead of maybe soul searching in another direction. So I joined a reserve unit. I joined the ROTC program. I was taking a full, college credit load, and I kept myself busy for 2 years doing that.
Okay. And by the way, have you ever been in combat?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, so what was the next, your next tour?
So basically, for quite a few years, almost 10, till 2003, I was in a drill sergeant, 98th Division out of Amherst, New York, and we ran troops out of Fort Leonard Wood. So that would be our AT would be going to Fort Leonard Wood, and I served various positions, platoon leader, first a cadet, then a platoon leader, then company commander, and then in 2003 I was involuntarily mobilized for Iraq, or Iraqi freedom.
Right.
Not knowing where I was going to go.
Okay. And where did you go?
I ended up going back to Fort Benning to the transfer station, and I still didn't know up to the very end. And I found my way to Central Command, U.S. Central Command in Tampa, Florida, still not knowing if I was going to be sent downrange, is what they called it.
Right.
But because, for whatever reason, I guess there was some kind of a discussion on where I would go. I ended up staying at Central Command doing per stats, which I counted people downrange. So we were a 7-day operation where we provided downrange numbers to the commander of U.S. Central Command every morning. There was a book on his desk, and we put this book together, and it told how many people were in what country. And we did that every morning. So I did that for quite a few years, and then moved around U.S. Central Command in various personnel positions until my retirement. I did 3 or 4 deployments to Qatar. We would run a commander's conference there, but it was basically get on a plane, get down there, put the conference together, come back.
Was that along the line of logistics?
It was personnel.
Okay.
I did multi-branch recruiting. Because of what I could do, they kept me around, I think. I could recruit Coast Guard, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force. They would come to me and say, we have a need for someone with this skill set. And then I would reach out into various communities, military communities, to try to find someone to fill that. And they had to have clearances, so that's a lot of what I did for the J3 operations in U.S. Central Command.
Okay. Okay. So that was the 10-year stint?
Yes.
Where'd you go after that?
Well, I retired in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my master's in that last 10 years, and I fully retired, and I travel and camp, and I'm downsizing, so all that good stuff. I'm getting involved with writing about my experience as a woman in the military.
Nice.
Because as I've gotten out, a lot of mothers come to me and they want to know, maybe their son is in the military and they have a curiosity about what it's really like.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping to put that to paper and collaborate with a couple of other military counterparts. So we're looking for a project, but I've done a little bit of writing. So moving forward will be a book, hopefully.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Have you mentioned every place that you traveled, even on R&R, on vacation, while over that 36-year period? Europe, Alaska?
I mean, Germany, Europe definitely, but most of my assignments have been CONUS or the United States. So these tours overseas were really maybe a trip, or I flew through on my way somewhere else.
Okay. So where'd you go in Europe?
In Germany, went to Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been to France, and but they weren't really military. They weren't military assignments.
That's
but,
okay. You
yeah.
still traveled.
Yeah, I traveled.
Right.
I traveled.
You
Italy, did I
Uh-huh.
mention that? I'm probably missing something, but
And so where are all the places you've been around the United States?
well, I've been everywhere in the United States. I think there isn't a state I haven't been to.
Really?
And now in my retirement, that retirement card, it just fascinates me because I have access to all the military bases, and it works. Sometimes I think, it'll be messed up or whatever, but I'll get there and the retirement card works, and I think it's more enjoyable now than before because I'm not working. I'm actually able to see the places and enjoy them and go to these bases and Air Force bases and all the bases that Marine bases we've been traveling. So I have a band and we just travel and write and play music.
Who's we, if you don't mind?
My boyfriend,
Okay.
we have a little dog, or it could be my son. I spend a lot of time in DC now, so I'll go up and visit my son in DC.
Ah.
And yeah, I just like to be on the road.
Okay, let's see. Tell me two of your most memorable experiences during your service career.
I think it was leaving home and being really afraid. And my experience in basic training, where I had a spiritual experience in the physical training run at the end because I wasn't very athletic, and I felt like a wing carrying me through the run, and that was stuck with me for a really long time, that I wasn't alone and I can do this even though I'm afraid and crying and leaving my mother and father, and that stuck with me for a long time, that I wasn't alone, and maybe found some form of spirituality in basic training and the hardships and sleeping on the ground and being freezing cold. At that time there wasn't all these great materials that they're using to keep warm. We were in heavy canvas tents, or in the winter. So my survivability, I was really taught a lot about that, and that was pretty memorable. The other memorable was going to Korea and realizing, oh, there's a big world, and there's this world I would have never gotten to see. So, and making it and getting out 36 years later, and I'm still pinching myself. I recently pulled up my shot record and realized I got 12 vaccinations in one day when I was called up in 2003 to go to Iraq. But I didn't go to Iraq. Even a polio booster and the Anthrax series. I was part of all that, and they stopped and started that program. So I don't have, I think, one memorable experience. And as I'm journaling and writing and hopefully, collaborating with other people, I'm actually remembering there's many, multiple memorable experiences. I don't think just one sums it up for
Share a few
so
more.
many. The people, the culturals, me coming out of it with a broader perspective of people, and maybe I changed through the whole process of maybe not being quick to pass judgment, learning more about myself and my survivability, and overcoming obstacles and what my strengths were. And now I realize that. So just the military is really about people.
Right.
It's about learning about people and meeting people, and there's some good ones and there's some great ones, and overcoming challenges when they're not so good or great. But I just when people say thank you for serving, I don't look at it that way. It was something that I just really loved to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was the challenge, and the pay was equal for women, and I could get promoted just along all my peers, regardless of they were men or women.
Right.
And it was a career choice for me. So when they say thank you, I don't feel like I've sacrificed, but I think it's great that our country does that for veterans, because other countries don't. So the memorable stuff, I don't know, it's all of it. I don't really have one or two specific.
While you were in the service, did you have any issues? Was there any problems as far as being able to communicate with your family?
Yeah, it was letters. In fact, it wasn't the internet, it wasn't FaceTime, we weren't texting, there were cell phones. So yeah, it was getting a box from home with cookies from mom,
right,
or letters. I remember on the advanced individual training, I got the most Valentine's Day letters, and I was so worried we were gonna have to do push-ups for our mail that day, but they weren't making us do push-ups that day, or I would have done a lot of push-ups, and everyone was impressed because my community really got behind me, and so it was snail mail. That's what we got.
Right.
So it was a lot. There was lonely times, a lot of lonely times. Calling on a Sunday, waiting in line to use the phone. I mean, yeah, it was very difficult.
Okay. Oh, how was the food throughout the service, the military?
Well, it was, we were consuming about 3,000 calories a day, remember, in training, and we would do road marches in Korea in excruciating conditions. I got frostbite in Korea, but
really,
yeah, the food. One day we all the same, and there was a lot of it, and cookies and cakes, and we could pile on as many calories as we wanted to, which proved, as we got older, was a little, it proved challenging to keep the weight off. But yeah, big old breakfast, anything you want. Grits. My introduction to grits was in the Army.
okay.
So waiting in line and, but we weren't always at the mess hall. The mess hall has evolved, and then, you know, as your rank increases, you aren't forced to eat at the mess hall anymore. So that was kind of short-lived with the mess hall.
Right. Okay, just a couple more questions.
Okay.
So you use your GI Bill for school,
Yes.
and what about purchasing a home?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, your educational support, yeah, okay, so, okay. Have you continued any, and I believe I can almost answer the question for you, but continued any of your friendships from the service to today?
Well, I didn't really have a lot of friends in the military
okay.
because we're always coming and going. I have the relationships that I have now are a very small sisterhood, and I do belong to all the the Legion and the VFW and things like that. But there's a group now that it's a very small group of women, less than 5, and I never would have thought this would be the group that would continue on
Right.
after the military. So I have a small select group, and I prefer to stay with a small group instead of going to the large. I don't like to hang out at the Legion or so, but I can always go there, and I find that sometimes those larger groups are still more about the military, and that's something that I did,
Right.
and it's not who I am. And I have to explain that to people because there's a lot of preconceived ideas of who you are if you've served for a long time, that you're a certain type of person and that I don't really want to continue that life. So when you go to those larger organizations, but yeah, I have a small group of great ladies that brought me here today, so.
Right. Okay. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Yes.
In what
Yes.
way?
I learned that there were a lot of times the history of the military, for instance, the Anthrax vaccination program, sometimes I felt like we were an experimental because they could. Because we joined, and some of our rights as a citizen didn't merge into our military careers. That if
Okay.
we had to get the vaccine, we got the vaccine. So I saw a broader picture of the sacrifice that the military, those that go down range and those that go to war and those that come back injured, great respect for the people that do that for us.
Yeah.
And in my studying about military and the Vietnam War and how that continued a couple years beyond that it should have continued.
Mm-hmm.
So how the military is used, in our country, maybe with a good outcome and maybe with not so much a good outcome. And sometimes you just never really find the truth. But we yet go and we serve and we sign up. And so it gave me a broader scope, broader picture of how the military is.
Okay. Last
used.
question. Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess I answered that. I don't know.
Yeah, you did. You did. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
I feel like I've grown beyond. If I would have stayed in that small town, if I hadn't left, I have grown and become this person that I never would have believed I would have gotten this far, grown individually, grown spiritually, I'm not afraid to do things. I'm living life, and I don't think I would have done any of those things if I'd have stayed in that small town. I probably would have gotten married and had lots of babies, and I pinch myself every day that I'm still here because of all the things that I've done and all the opportunities and all the hardships, being a single mom in the military,
Mm-hmm.
losing my family support but gaining another kind of support,
Right.
and learning to trust and not be afraid to live life. So I've learned so much about myself and how the hardest parts of my career were those times I had to grow and change my point of view. And so I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity. And would I have done it again? Absolutely.
Okay.
I think I would have done it some things a little differently,
Mm-hmm.
but from where I'm sitting right now, I kind of pinch myself actually that I'm still here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your service.
And I want to thank you for your service.
Okay.
And your project.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for a fabulous interview.
Well,
But it's not my project. I'm a participant.
our project.
There you go.
Our project. I didn't even know it existed, and it's so fabulous that you did all this work today. I'm in awe, and I'm kind of feeling like I need to get a project.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Huh?
Are we done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything that you feel like you left out?
No,
Okay.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. The feeling's mutual, believe me.